out. I need to buy another one. Y'all were nice enough to give it to me a year and a half ago during a presentation I did.
We can send you another one. What color do you like?
You know, I mean,
orange,
I have this one with
blue,
the dark.
white.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll
wear anything. I'll wear anything.
Small, medium, large.
Large. Well, I'm not really sure. Let me look at this one. This one fits great. In between medium and large.
Got it. We'll go with the large. All right.
Great. So it's just
I didn't realize that our meeting here would be coinciding with the live stream of the announcement of the new UVA president. So you never plan quite right for these things, but
way to go, Ned.
We're very excited about this. So Cameron joined. Anybody else join? Since I think it's a couple minutes after, we can probably go ahead and get started. Grayson wasn't going to make it, was he, Ruth?
No, I think we're relaying the info to him.
Gotcha. Okay, and I know Ian could make it, and I know Susanna couldn't. So I think that's probably our gang. So Peter, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. I'll just to sort of super briefly recap for everybody. So the idea here, obviously, is to start getting our arms around what this could mean, having a digital archive, and start thinking about, as I laid out in the memo, where we might sort of start to take a small bite out of the elephant, as Peter says, and in terms of what type of material, what type of focus, what group of people do we think we might be able to mobilize to help with a pilot project like this, and to be able to define something fairly tightly so it wouldn't get out of control, but also something that would allow us and allow people from outside of the working group to sort of see what's going on and use it and experience it and start to intuitively understand the power of all these interconnections. So this is Peter's line of work, and he can discuss all this much better than me. I will say that I'll make the standard disclaimer that this is not necessarily a digital relab StarChive presentation. This is a subject matter expert who happens to be a devoted Norfolk Academy alumnus, and he will get bonus points for any time he says things like, now our competition does something like pretty well, or we're not too good at this.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, thanks to Peter and Megan for making the time today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thanks, Ned. It really is a absolute pleasure to be here. Now, our competition, like St. Chris and Richmond Collegiate and STAB, really didn't produce graduates that got a really well-rounded education, I think, and therefore, coming from Academy, coming from Academy, I was really encouraged to mix into, interdisciplinary pursuits. I've always been interested in photography and video and recording and what that means. And back in the 80s and 90s, when I was at Norfolk Academy, these were things that we just did maybe once every month. I mean, maybe there was a camera on the field during a tournament, but maybe not during practice. And I think with my interest in history and the humanities and those things, that got me into being an archaeologist when I left Colby College, which is where I graduated college up in Maine. And, so in 1996, when I graduated from Colby, we had all these things beginning to converge into, I think, what we can all agree is the new digital epic that we find ourselves in. So from an archaeology standpoint, I love artifacts, but artifacts really aren't worth much without context. And so you could make that same comparison in analog with files and media to data. And so, doing a quick kind of, preparing for this meeting, I'm looking at like, what kind of data do we have at NA? What kind of data are we looking for? And I think there's a lot of, great systems out there to manage contact information for alumni, right? We are not going to replace that, though we can certainly pull data from it, and we could even grab data and push it into. But let me focus on this really first, because if we're going to really look at a successful way to build some excitement and kind of get some momentum, it does feel like the alumni is a great way to do it. One of the data challenges I picked up is people move all the time, and data, contact information is something that drifts, right? And so that's a challenge. It requires resources currently, all of these things to keep it up. And when we put out an email and we say, hey, everybody, update your contact information, it really feels like a lot like work. And therefore, a lot of the contacts aren't getting updated. But if you put out an email and you say, hey, everybody, if you're at your reunion, take a selfie and upload it to us, then everybody's like, oh, I want to do that. And then you put the Trojan horse in, which is on the upload form, you say, what is your first name, last name, current address, and things. So when I look at the challenges that are really in all segments of life these days, this is not just alumni. This is us as immigrants into digital. We've got challenges with an overwhelming amount of data and kind of where to even begin. So what I would like to do is I'd like to just read 5 ideas that I had, and then I can kind of go into this demo and approach it really as a conversation, because there's a lot of functionality, but I think that functionality is secondary to really the opportunities and just the pain that we might want to solve with exploring what an archive could mean to Academy. So before I kind of go into these 5 ideas for the alumni, any questions or comments about what I just said? I'll just kind of pause here for a moment.
No?
Nope. All right. Anybody else?
I think we're good.
So far, so good.
Okay, great. So here's something that's really fascinating. And, again, this is the archaeologist in me. I'm going to wear actually 3 hats on this call. I'd love to wear the alumni hat. I'd love to wear the archaeologist hat. And I'd love to wear this, let's just call it digital hat. And so the archaeologist in me realizes that there's so much stuff to be discovered that literally there could be a digital excavation. And the archaeologist in me also knows that a super well-funded dig might dig up, like Jamestown, for example, might still only dig up and excavate 1% of the surface. But even that small percentage has contributed so much to the actual appreciation and understanding of Jamestown. So as I look at how could we possibly use digital tools to engage alumni using the past, the present, and the future, these are just a few things that came to mind. They might not resonate at all, or one might, and so I'm going to just throw them out. We can talk about any of them and then kind of move on. But today, we are moving from images to video. It's very easy to take video. Videos don't really publish well in paper, but they're all over the internet. And so an opportunity that we have is to really move both alumni submissions and the alumni, let's call it distribution or syndication of information and content to leverage more video submissions. And I think what we're finding is that while images can speak 1,000 words, videos themselves can teleport you back to the past and expose something that you could have really missed. And in a sense, look at something like TED. TED is video-based. TED has a lot of subject matter experts. Our alumni is absolutely incredible and might already have videos of them giving presentations to civic groups or to their peers or whatever. And so this opportunity to actually curate video submitted by the alumni community for the alumni community is something that StarChive can really do. And I can speak to that as we go into the demo. Again, you know, as I kind of led up with, if we've got data problems, right? How do we get people to update their contact information? You know, it's possible for us to give people upload forms and kind of curate things in a way that's a little bit more fun and immediate. For example, we've got a reunion. We're all, you know, post game. We happen to be at this event, and we're you know, someone's at the podium and they're speaking, whether they're giving a blessing or they're giving whatever. There's an opportunity to say, hey, everybody, if you go to, you know, reunion, you know, reunion.na.org or .edu / you know, class of 1992, my class / you know, upload, we'd love you to give us your reunion shots right now. And so you know, not to just like keep picking up extra credit on this call, but with there's a lot of competitions that can do that, right? We can leverage Dropbox. People can email us photos, and Ruth, you and your team can really speak to all of the different ways that the alumni are giving you information, right? And
right.
Let me pause right there and open it up for discussion.
Ways that alumni are giving us information?
Yeah, is that true or false first? Right?
Maybe ways you would
True.
like them to give you.
True. Well, true. I feel like in the last year we have ramped up with our communication office how we're dispersing information all over the place, and sometimes faster than we can keep up with it here.
Yeah.
And yes, we would certainly love for it to be coming back and be a circle, especially when it regards reunion activities, whether they're local or regional and so forth.
Yeah, so there are ways we can, so maybe let me pause. I'm going to give a couple just facts about StarChive. One, StarChive can store a bunch of different types of digital information. We can store audio, video, images, other documents I'll pull up on screen. We can store links to things. So if I open up this document, notice what I've got is a Google Doc that's embedded. And I can do a lot of things. I could even pull this up and start editing it. And so to give you all a little bit of context about what you're seeing, I'm going to close everything on my screen here. And I'm going to close my sidebar. And I'm going to just kind of focus on some of the things that StarChive does really well that competition actually struggles with. And I'm going to pick on some kind of big names that we know. Like, so let's look at Dropbox for a moment. Dropbox has been great. Dropbox can integrate with StarChive. StarChive can read through a user or multiple users' Dropboxes and basically migrate content from Dropbox or even make a copy of material that's in Dropbox and move it into StarChive. Right now, Dropbox is pretty great. You can, you know, create a shared folder, you can send it to someone can upload you a lot of pictures. Where Dropbox really begins to fail is that, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn my notifications off. I apologize if they're just flashing on screen. But where Dropbox really fails is we can't really give a lot of things context, okay? So I know that we're seeing a lot of things on the screen, and we saw this image of me. Notice when I click on any of these thumbnails, and right now you're seeing a grid view versus a table view. But if I click on, say, this right here, I get to a pane which acts kind of like a database. I guess it is a database. And I could add any single field or tag that I want. And I could say, oh, you know, this person is Peter Agelasto, right? And I'm gonna go down here and I'm gonna click save. And in fact, I'm gonna go to back to this other one where I've got this picture of Sarah. I'm gonna edit this one. And this one is sponsored by, I'll get to there, but let's just put Peter Agelasto right here. Notice that I've got predictive typing in case I have long sets, and it's Peter Agelasto already came up. And oops, let me scroll back up. I'm going to hit save. And what StarChive really does is it helps you create these relations. So I'm going to go back to my file menu. I'm going to go to kind of the details pane. I'm going to notice that now Peter Agelasto has a value, and every single value is a hyperlink, so that now I've got people equals Peter Agelasto as a link. So imagine as we think of context, right? We have people, place, things, dates, teachers, classes. We've got all of these things, right? And the class of 1992 is metadata. My name, Peter Agelasto, is metadata. And, you know, metadata gets thrown around so much these days, it's hard to know what we really mean when we say it. So going back to the epistemology of meta, it really means self-referential, right? So in this sense, the file is the self, and we're referencing data about it. So let me just kind of pause really quick, because what I want to do is reinforce that we use data, which can be any type of data. It can be numbers, it can be paragraphs, it can be key name values, right? And we take that data, we're able to put it into search, and we're able to relate data to data, as we saw with this filter of people equals Peter Agelasto. But we also saw that we can relate data to media, and that's where things get kind of powerful. So I'm going to pause before I go too much deeper for just questions and comments.
No questions for me. I think we're just learning.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Keep on.
Yeah, the tagging and defining the relationships between, you know, different pictures, different people, different places, different things. You know, this is the kind of stuff I'm excited about getting into here, because, and a lot of times, you know, they don't even you don't even necessarily see some of the connections until, you know, after you have a lot of metadata around these pictures and videos and recordings and documents and what all else. That's the promise of this thing to me, and I'm excited to see you showing it, Peter. Thanks.
Yeah. So what I'm doing, thanks, Ned. What on screen really quick, I just wanted to add some keywords. Let's see. I'm kind of customizing, because to Ned's point, what StarChive really does well, and I'm going to open up 2 examples to show you even in more detail. What we discovered is that files, we thought, you know, we used to think of files as, oh, it's peter.jpg, right? And that's kind of what we thought of the file. And then we said, oh, actually the file is a modified date, right? Or the file was in this folder, right? And we're gleaning all of this kind of metadata, right? Referential data about the thing. But what we've uncovered is that that is the tip of the iceberg from actually what's there. So on my screen, I'm going to open up a movie really quick. And the audio is off on my computer, right? And I won't, but this is my business partner. This is Richard Averett. Sadly, he did not go to Norfolk Academy, but he is very jealous and excited about this opportunity to really lend some of what we found. We'll forgive him, right? But so what I'm going to show you is we really can have multiple things on screen, right? So here's Peter. I've got an image and I've got a movie, and both are on screen. And I can do things like I could start and make clips, right? So imagine that we've got a game, and all we want to do is send to the alumni the winning shot, right? But that's painful. That's a lot of production workflow, right? Or imagine, and this I'm going to leave alumni really quick, come back to the bigger picture, and then I'm going to go back to alumni and express some of this data. But, you know, when the future looks like, Toy, how many classrooms do we have in Norfolk Academy? Does anyone know that?
120, 110.
Okay, so let's do some quick math. In 2017, moving into 2018, we've got 120 classrooms. Each of those have a teacher for most of the day. Each of those have a class for most of the day. We realized that, you know, there's an hour where that classroom's vacant. Maybe not. It was when I was there. In the past, the teacher would just get up there and talk to the student body or talk to their students. But now, what I saw with my own eyes when I was there last is we've got electronic chalkboards, we've got the teacher, there's videos, there's all of this. These classrooms are networked. All of this stuff is data. So if you do the math and you say, gosh, we've got 120 classrooms, let's say that there's 5 classes going on a day for an hour. So, basically we're at 600 hours of class going on at Norfolk Academy. And we've got high-res video in those classes and the electronic chalkboards and recordings for the kids who've missed class that day. That's a huge amount of content. There's no way that Mr. Fleener can deal with all that stuff. It's even for a small team, it would be overpowering. So what StarChive really does, and I'm going to describe this production because I'm going to show you that in the details, right, of this video that we uploaded. You are able to put into StarChive, you're basically able to connect it to the highest res material that's made, which means with a little networking on your side, all of these cameras that are shooting in real time can be saving to hard disks. StarChive can look at those and they can add these things automatically in ways that are auto-tagged. So from a video repository, or gosh, wouldn't it be cool to go back to the alumni and say, we've got, we've been going back through the stacks, right? Because, alumni love sports. We've been going through the stacks and we've been pulling some of the tournament games and we've been putting up, some of these things for you all. Because I would have loved to see, my lacrosse team with Duquette and some of these things. But again, the competition, I mean, there's a lot of like Dropbox or Box, they can add videos, right? We can use WordPress, which I know the Savage Chronicles are running on to add video. That's not really the issue. The issue is the full resolution because that's a problem. And the issue is also storage because, unless we're hosting the Savage Chronicles out of a Norfolk Academy server, that material needs to be compressed and moved up onto the internet in order to really be previewable. So a quick fact, and then I'll go back to metadata. StarChive can run in the locally, or it can run in the cloud. So there's some flexibility of where these files can live. All of these files could live on Norfolk Academy servers, and then by working with the Norfolk Academy IT department, we can basically index the material, even help to kind of create some kind of like better storage organization that makes more use of the current hardware. And we can provide that data with an integration into the Amazon Web Services cloud so that the alumni basically think they're looking at a cloud product and they can all, whether they're in London or Tokyo or Richmond, they can all kind of have a very similar experience. But the Norfolk Academy workflow could be that there are shared folders sitting on people's desktops locally where they're adding things. So imagine, Ruth, if you had a folder sitting on your desktop that was called, let's call it alumni, right? I'm sure you already have one. But if we open up the alumni folder, imagine we've got one that says, sports, reunion materials, homecoming pictures, all of these things. And if we open up homecoming pictures, imagine there was another folder that was called 1991, 1992, 1993, etc. And imagine that if when you come back from the game and you've got a camera full of photographs and you've got alumni that are still in the stands heading out to all the little parties and get-togethers, your workflow now becomes, I come back to my desk, or this could be, this folder could be distributed. You could do this from home. You drop your entire camera card with photos into that folder called 1992 Homecoming, and we've got these little auto tag templates in there, which are very easy to create. And now any photo that you put into that 1992 Homecoming, not only is going to get the data I'm about to show you, but it's also going to get this human data, which you can prepend across 1,000 images. So that the point of that is because, and again, this was some of the pain that we were trying to solve for ourselves. So selfishly, I couldn't stand being the last one to leave the office because I was waiting for something to upload. That used to drive me nuts. And so what we did was we say, wow, there needs to be better ways to sync things so that when I come in with a 5 gigabyte card full of audio, video, and images, and I just need to give them to Toy so that he and Gay can basically parse through them and figure out what article they want to write. Like, that workflow took me away from everything else that was really important. So imagine now you come back from the game, you've got a camera full of photos, you just take them off your camera like you would do normally, you just put them in this folder. Now, StarArchive is smart enough to know about that folder because we configured it to. And now what it's doing is it's automatically uploading and ingesting, and it's building lower res derivatives that might fit the exact pixel dimensions that you need for the website, or also giving you higher quality ones that would be appropriate when you show at a banquet or an award show. So this is all to say that workflow and production was a big kind of motivator. But then we discovered all these things we didn't really knew existed. So for example, I went back to this analogy of the file. We used to think of it as, oh, it's the title of the file. Oh, no, it's the permissions of the file. It's the date of the file. But as we started to really understand what files were, we realized, files are actually independent databases. When we go to the doctor's office and they take a X-ray of our mouth, there are 3,000, almost 4,000 individual fields of medical metadata that DICOM, which is a special image format in the medical world, can have inside of it. And there are literally in a MP3, if I looked at the band Led Zeppelin and I took Stairway to Heaven.mp3, and we're all familiar with this from iTunes and other music organization services. You can put the artist, you can put the genre, you can put the date, the producer, and all these things. But did you know that in an MP3, we can store 256 megabytes of information in the long description alone? So when I open on screen here, and I click this tab called Probed, this video, we didn't do anything. All we did was upload it. And then this video, and I'm just going to kind of mouse up here, our tools probed to find all of this information inside it. And we found all sorts of things. We found which applications and which versions of the software made it. We found when that file was actually created. We found all of the supporting clips that file went to make. So how many times have you been looking at a video that you shot and you're like, gosh, where did we use that clip? I love it, but I have no idea what it's named and we can't find it anymore. All of that is actually in the file itself. We know, I'm just going to scroll down here, because some of this, data is more useful than others. We know that in the long description, we had StarArchive is a breakthrough technology that allows you to create and save the way you want to never lose your files, like a brain for storage. I'm going to come back to brain here in a second. Also notice that I know who made it for me. This was made by Abel, and it was on his computer, which was his volumes, Abel work, in his Dropbox, etc. So when we really look at files, we are uncovering all this other information, which may or may not be important, right? But I think the thing that's really kind of interesting is they all relate and link. So who cares what Adobe Premiere Pro from 2014 actually, like that value might not be that important to me. But if I click it, what it does is find all of these other things, which I might have been hard time finding myself. So it's these other relationships that really extend the kind of the searchability. So let me just pause right there. I'm saying a lot, and I don't want to just speak at everybody.
It sounds like there's such a huge communications piece. I know we're going to turn this into the information that we have, the archive information that we have, but so much of it, when you talk about, pictures and video coming in now, seems pertinent to our communications team and how they're organizing things. Ned, does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd muted myself. I had to unmute. Yeah, I mean, it's incoming and outgoing, right? I mean, and most importantly, it's a structure and it's a framework to support both of those activities, right?
Yeah.
Whereas right now, you've just kind of got stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even, if I'm understanding Peter correctly, it doesn't even say, hey, you have to put all these things in my special Starchive bucket. You know, you can say, well, I've got some things over here on Dropbox, I've got some things over here in Google Docs, got some things over here in this cloud service, and this is like sort of a meta umbrella over all that stuff that helps you get to it, see the relationships between the different things, and then act on it.
Right.
Well, and let me just real quick, Ned, conceptually that is absolutely correct. Technically today, right, we are, you know, like, for example, if I open up this Google Doc, right, so what you said, I want to just provide a little clarity because it's kind of yes and no. So with things that we can access via link, right, imagine our team uses Google Docs. We have so many docs, and these things all have relationships with one another. One document could relate to 5 other documents. And this folder paradigm was really complicated because if you are just either trying to make decisions around which select to put in the alumni magazine, or you're trying to wrap your hands around all of these divergent places. In the Google Doc example, yeah, whether it's spreadsheets or Google Docs or, you know, Google Slides or anything, we can leave that stuff in Google. We can use Google tools to organize it, but we can also bring those links in and then kind of integrate the things that are in Google with the files that we have on our local computer. What we're not doing today in our current 2.7.7 release, but it's really top of mind as we move to a 2018 Q1 release of what we're calling version 3, is just really how do we leave things out there and index them? You know, right now, for example, if we wanted to, we have a client. I think, Megan, I think we can mention this. Okay, well, I can't tell you who this client is. Okay, because we're under NDA right now.
Yeah.
But I think I think I could say that if you ever watch HGTV, you will have seen them. You have seen this personality multiple times a day. Okay, and this group of an entertainment TV production company. I mean, they're just doing so much stuff. They've got 3 different divisions outside of television, right? And they've been siloed across all of these things. Yet, as we know, like there are times when one file goes across 3 silos, right? So let me kind of just pull back really quick. So today, what we could do really well is we could integrate a couple things. One, if there's anything that's in a location that wants to be moved intelligently, let's say that we want to embark on the alumni hard drive cleanup. That if you're like us, you have just hard drives sitting on the shelf. They have alumni information on them. We don't know what's in it. I'm sure it's valuable. We hate to lose it, and things are at risk. And maybe one of the goals is to get everything that's at risk with alumni into either a server space on the network, which we could do, right? I mean, there's nothing that would prevent Academy to say, hey, let's load all the drives, let's put them on the server. But then they're all sitting in folders, right? We can't really act on them. It's hard to share them with people. And so like Dropbox, like you can share URLs and files, you can do that with Starchive too. So for example, I'm going to open these Dylan images up in my results, right? We had the distinct pleasure to take some of a well-known filmmaker named D.A. Pinnebacker. I think he even interviewed Kennedy back in the day. And D.A. Pinnebacker followed Bob Dylan to his first tour in the UK, where Dylan came out electric in the second set. And the Bob Dylan Music Company, which is our first client, they released last year a 30 CD box set of that entire tour. So they're using Starchive right now to basically mine for product. But the images that you're seeing on screen, these started out as a piece of film that then our tool turned into select images. So let's say, for example, that we're in a process of deciding which of these are going to be the album covers. And so it was kind of cool. We had the opportunity to help them build 30 album covers. And so if I go to my actions and I go share, and I say, you know, let Ruth pick which one she wants, and I could say, okay, let's let that expire in a week, right? Do we want to add a password? No, I just want to send it to Luke. To Ruth. Do I want to allow downloads? Yes. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Because we put the original in StarCarve, we always have access to the original. That's the one that's the most important. That's the highest quality. Quality is a central component to StarCarve. But because we, and just playing the subject matter expert, let me stop pitching StarCarve for a second. The real important things are quality. Because I'll give you a great example. Back 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago now, MySpace was such a big deal, right? You had all of these people doing all this self-promotion through MySpace, and they were making a video file type called FLV. That stood for Flash Video. Because bandwidth wasn't great, because MySpace wouldn't accept things like MP4 at that point, folks were taking their high-resolution MOV files and making very small FLV files. And then they were losing the relationship. They were basically losing the originals, or even sometimes deleting them. And then what happened was, fast forward to now, MySpace is largely obsolete. Many players will not play FLVs natively in HTML5 in the browser. They still do play. But the quality is terrible. These things are like 300 pixels wide. And so really, this isn't about how do we fix like the MySpace problem. This is about, there's going to be new files and formats that are going to come out over the next 10 or 15 years, certainly over the next 100 years. And really, from a preservation standpoint, there's more opportunities with the original. So that is a footnote to describe what you're seeing on the screen, because I've opened up in my share, I'm saying, hey, which of these do I want to share? And actually what I want to do is I want to share the medium version 640 by 640 pixel version. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to even allow someone like Toy to comment on the ones that Ruth is sharing. So, you know, yes, Ruth, you know, our competition like Dropbox and Box and even Google Drive, you know, I could share things with Toy, right? But in this case, when I create that share URL and I go open this up in a new window, what's really cool is this is now integrated into, I mean, this could be files sitting on the Norfolk Academy server that we're using cloud-like tools to open up and go outside of Norfolk Academy. And I could look at any of these to preview, right? I could even leave comments and be like, yeah, let's use this one, approved, right? And when I click save, you know, that is actually going back and being appended to the metadata. So think of this for a second. If original quality is really important, right? I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. And yet we've got all of these, I don't like the word competing interests. I like the word collaborative interests. We've got all these different interests that overlay, not just alumni, right? This might be the core principles within education. This might be just business development. Heck, this might be the plans that we need to circulate to get teacher feedback for the new building or the new athletic fields, right? I mean, files are files, right? It's up to humans to bring classification and organizational schemas around it. And StarCarve really lets you do that. So I'm going to pause because I just kind of showed one way that we could share. I mean, if I just wanted to download that to my local computer, you know, I could have just clicked download, right? There's just a lot of different ways to go about this. But let me just kind of pause. I realize we're covering a lot.
You're covering a lot, Ned. What are your thoughts?
Well, what he just demonstrated is, I think, super powerful conceptually for the idea of engaging other people and adding to the metadata. So, you know, if we start from the, you know, wherever we decide to start this thing, we're going to say, okay, let's focus on, this time period, this group of people, whatever, for the pilot project. We're going to have still a huge amount of content, a lot of which we'll probably have to, that isn't even digital, right? In a lot of cases. So we'll have to, create the files. And so using tools like what Peter just showed us, I think we could, share those, stick those files somewhere where they're accessible to everybody, and then share them with sort of a larger working group of volunteers, even, right? That who's in this picture? What event is this? Help us contextualize all this stuff that we've got and start creating those links between documents. And that's the kind of thing, again, just thinking of this in the context perhaps of a very narrowly drawn alumni-focused project for starters. You could get, a group of people, I think, pretty excited about just, on their own time, at their own desk, just, sit down and go through, a dozen pictures and a couple of videos and put in some information about them that will help us, draw these connections.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the social power of this that I think lends itself super well to alumni engagement.
Yep. And we even have, beyond the share tools, like you can embed things. So if basically we wanted to empower the Savage Chronicles or the Norfolk Academy website with more information, like we can start, saying, oh, I want to embed, these are the, generate some embed codes for me, right? But Ruth, one of the things that I don't think I covered well enough, and I want to kind of go back to, there are great systems, right, that are like, whether they're, databases that are specifically, for alumni work, right? Or there's home-rolled spreadsheets where you're like, my data, like I've got this. I know all the fields that are meaningful. Like I know where I want to put data. I understand all these things. The problem has been that, I've got just 1,000 files, and how do I relate that data? So StarChive is, you could use something like FileMaker Pro, right? Or some other application built off of MySQL, or another number of those customer relationship management tools, right? But what StarChive really allows you to do, like those tools, is I can come in and define, I'm just waiting for my screen to catch up here. And if it is caught up for you all, you should see a pane called Fields.
Yep.
And what you should see is basically a lot of fields. So we think of fields as, hey, that's the label, right? The field might be alumni class, right? The value might be 1992. Another value might be 1993, et cetera. So imagine when StarChive comes blank.
86, maybe.
Well, going, there you go. Ned and I are classmates, by the way.
Nice. 1728, it's like what we're able to do is we're able to give you basically a database building tool that you can build. So one of the challenges that we're solving against is that a lot of systems kind of get you 80% there. Yeah, these fields are great, but I really need this one field, right? And that's, I can't create it. The system won't let me. So imagine that with StarChive, a couple of things are going to happen. One, we're going to probe out. So I'm going to uncheck this thing that says hide probe fields. So we're going to probe out fields from your existing data that already exist in the files that you can't see. We're going to make fields of. We're going to give you these tools so that you can come in and you can say, great, I want to make a field, and that field is going to be a checkbox, right? Or it's a date, or it's time, or it's a link. And I then want only owners, the inner alumni team to see it. Or to the point just earlier, hey, we've got some alumni who are participating in this effort, and we want to show them. So we have a permission matrix where files can have different levels. So if you have receipts from the tailgate that the alumni department are picked up, You could put them in here. StarChive will allow you to relate them to different things. We'll probe some of the data out of it, do some OCR on things. But if I'm logging in as someone who's just going to help tag some things, I don't know receipts are in there. So, you really, across metadata fields and across permissions, you can really create some interesting things, which really help with our silos. So I'm going to show you just one more thing, and then I'm going to pause. When we have control over our metadata with our permissions, we're able to do different things. And we call this slicing. So in this user, which let's call it the manager, I've clicked on it, and as I kind of scroll down, or actually let me just click on this 1 second. Okay, so in this example, this user, Mark Sample, and his email is mark@mark. I mean, could have been his real email, but I was just kind of putting this as a market as a demo. We are locking Mark down. So when he logs in,
Mark Wald.
We are locking.
Marky Mark.
Yeah, exactly. When Marky Mark logs in, Marky Mark can only see files that have been tagged artist Bob Marley. So imagine this, like we want to start sharing things with classes. You could have a login for a class or for the class representative. You could tag things 1986, right, for the field reunion class or in a alumni class, whatever you want to call it. And now you could have these workflows where when you're trying to distribute things to the class of 1986, whether it's new pictures we just scanned or it's all these things, all you do is drop it into the class of 1986 folder, and we're going to pick up that metadata. We're going to already make that slice. And then any of our representatives who've logged in, who have accounts, we've restricted them to that. So imagine in the case where you've got someone they're trying to do the class of 1995, the class of 2000, the class of 2005, and 2010 and 15, right? Now we say, okay, I'm going to restrict you to all of those. So as you start to look at data, what we realize is that this like classic linear model of data, where we're thinking in hierarchical terms that folders put on us, we take that limitation away, and then we try to go with something a little bit more graph-based, so that really weird relationships. Maybe it's just artist equals Bob Marley, class equals 1992, and status of file is that it's a donation. I mean, you can really kind of sculpt things. Let me pause.
So I think this is too for some of the down the road toys, some of the sort of confidentiality things we've talked about,
right?
Or or even on a more basic level, we've even talked about, that we could have different types of users, different levels of access. So I think Toy might have been you said something about even if we have concerns about people outside the school looking at too many pictures of girls in their volleyball outfits, to pick a gross example. But
yeah,
I mean there are all kinds of ways you can build roles and permissions to answer those questions.
Yeah. So what are some of as you all, we're always looking to lend experience and expertise around the challenges, the workflow challenges of finding things, distributing things, providing organization. So yeah, I'm showing you a lot of things, and there's so many cool things that I want to show you. But I'm sitting on my hands to listen a little bit more, because what I want to do is I want to kind of collect from this conversation and follow-ups where I can help provide some greater advice. Like we mentioned, digitization. There's a number of really good partners out there, right? And I might also suggest that it might be really powerful to actually look at our student body as people who can digitize for us, because those skills are in huge demand. Like, it's just, there's big things. So what do you think is the number one problem that you would like to kind of solve?
Gay is saying just the digitizing piece. I keep coming back to the communication, and just to explain, communications is I think Ned knows this, but is a totally separate division here. And Esther Diskin is our head of communications with Kathy Finney, and they've just added another person to their office this summer. But they have expanded so much in the last year, and I feel like a good chunk of this conversation loops into all issues that they may be having, particularly with the sharing of the information.
Right.
And Gay obviously is looking at a massive amount of archival information, paper that's not digital in any way. So I think that's, her anxiety and concern. And we definitely, I would love to be able to share this with our alums and have our communications team be able to take in info and be able to dispel it as well.
It occurs to me that to answer the question about what the problems we see are, we first have to answer the question, which I think Ned started with, about where we begin subject matter-wise.
Right.
Are we talking yearbooks? Are we talking, which are difficult to digitize because they're old fuzzy black and white pictures, and some of the yearbooks we have are given to us by old folks who marked on them. And so if you're talking about still images that we have, and Ned and I had agreed that it's more than a place to start, but that a place to start is things that have already been vetted by us and gone out to the public or to the parents or whatever. The chief problem exactly. The chief problem we see is once we identify, if yearbooks is a sensible place to start, and we have them back to about 1904, that's going to, solve the number one problem we see. Well, it's actually twofold. One is who does that work, and two, who controls the flow of that material in and out of our possession. We're very jealous of the work that Gay has done over the last 10 years, 5 years, however long you've been doing it, how long have you been doing it?
No idea.
It's been a long time. But we had we'll go anonymous here, but we had a student intern do some work there last summer and got back, and a whole bunch of stuff was out of place and unfindable after many years of making sure that everything had a place to be in and was in its place. So the answer to your question of what is the initial hurdle is, first let's pick out what we're physically talking about, trying to get into your machine.
And how we're going to do it.
And then the question of the grubby questions of who has a key, that kind of stuff.
And I like the fact you can limit who the keys were.
Yeah, we're the feature of being able to block people from certain things is of crucial importance. For instance, we never put a student's last name in any publication. The paper does, but when I talk about in the Stats Chronicles, for instance, I might say Billy, but I'm never going to put Billy's last name in. And that's a matter of our enrollment contract.
That one. Let's just look at that one thing real quick. So if there was a field, first name called Billy, or the field's called first name, right? Value is Billy, and the last name is Adams, We got Billy Adams, right? That first name could be public, but that last name could be like an admin, only an admin level could see it. So that depending on who you are, when you look at that information as Ruth, it's Billy Adams. But you look at that information as Billy's parents on the front page, or something, it's just Billy. Another thing, going back to some of the digitization kind of questions, right? I do think that there's multiple ways that probably all work together to solve it. The first is if NA has an AV club or could create a digitization club or a digital media club, that would be a great place to get the stuff that's not really important. Now, if you've got private communications documents around the bylaws of the group and the finances and all these things, we don't want an AV club to see that, right? And therefore, we could say, hey, we got a pile over here for the students to digitize. This is y'all's media, go for it. And over here, maybe we need some additional kind of help. So for one of our clients, and she is public knowledge, so I can mention with Carly Simon. Basically, she is. We're helping her put together her, and just don't go broadcast on the New York Times. This is giving her permission to let people do it. Just this is kind of internal. And when we get to the point of further exploration and we do some kind of non-disclosure privacy thing between Norfolk Academy and Digital Relab, what you all, we keep all your things private, and so you say, hey, you could tell somebody else that we're working with Norfolk Academy. So I just kind of want to underscore that when we get into these projects, we know where the bodies are buried, and we know what the data is. And that's a really trusted position to contemplate with any partner. While I wasn't on the Honor Council at Norfolk Academy, but I was on the Honor Council at Washington Lee when I went my freshman year. So I appreciate Academy for instilling those virtues. It's really helped a lot in communicating privacy. But going back to the challenge that Gabe's got, for Carly Simon, they had just so many papers. There's a ton of stuff. They have a very small team. They can't do a lot. And we suggested to them that it is possible to just take out your iPhone or take out your mobile phone, because they really do make some good things. And we can take pictures of things that can either be the final picture or it could be a proxy for when a digital scan comes. So in their case, they know they want to do some scanning, but they're trying to wrap their arms first around what they've got. And so we've got their members of their team doing the following workflow. They'll go through a big box of papers. They're just taking things and shooting them with their phone. We've then given them a spreadsheet because they don't always have connectivity on Martha's Vineyard. They are putting the file name on the row, and then they're filling out the spreadsheet that is all the metadata that they like. And then at the end of every week, they upload that spreadsheet and those files in the spreadsheet, they all are already mapped together, okay? And now they're able to kind of use some of their base values to really understand things. From there, we have a working partner that does a lot of magazine digitization for Condé Nast. Their name is Apex Covantage, a really good group of people. And the founder, who's Indian, has a group of Indians on the west coast of India. And what they do is they type metadata that they find in images or documents into predefined fields. And the way that they build for it is actually on how many characters they're putting in. So we realized that we couldn't do an exhaustive implementation with Carly Simon's team, but we were going to get them to give us the bare minimum, and then we're sharing those images via the interface with India, and they're able to see these, just see it and kind of fill in some of the gaps, right? So there's ways that we can look at the other partners, and we have a short list of folks who we've found really helpful with digitizing cassettes or film, images, slides. We were really lucky. We've worked with a client, they're out close to Charlottesville, It's called Yogaville. And Yogaville, the head of Yogaville, who's now left the body, his name was Swami Satchidananda. Swami Satchidananda was a well-known individual within the mindfulness. He gave the opening invocation at the Woodstock Music Festival in 1969. But Yogaville was tasked with, UVA has adopted the physical collection, but Yogaville wanted to keep the digital collection. And what they have was a huge slide issue. I mean, they have 280 or 300,000 slides that they need digitized. And so we were able to help steer them towards the right partner to do some of that digitization. And the way that we've the way that our business is set up, its Digital Relab, is we like to make connections between partners, trusted partners. So whether if you're putting your stuff in Amazon, you pay Amazon. If you're going to digitize 1 million slides, you pay the person who can digitize the slides. We just really act as subject matter experts, but also kind of the level of support to support the application and the goals of the initiative.
He's a middleman.
I know.
Something also to consider, and I'm gonna want to keep hearing, and I know this is an ongoing conversation, but Toy, you mentioned the yearbooks. So I'm going to show you an example here of how we can use deep learning or artificial intelligence to find things. So I'm going to open up this image. I took this on a family trip to Greece. Okay, I put this image into StarKive, and then there are a number of different tools out there, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, etc., that we can tie into with regards to getting information from the artificial intelligence. So Amazon's computer vision AI tools tagged my images Parthenon. I didn't add Parthenon, it did. So imagine, gosh, we've got football, tennis, baseball, right? Those things, we could have Amazon privately tag them. But going back to the how AI and all this stuff works, you're always looking for what they call the model. You train the model, and then you run things against the model, and it basically, what you train the model to do, it'll find it. So imagine facial recognition. Toy, you mentioned we got yearbooks back to like the first decade of 1900. What is so incredible about a yearbook is that it is the perfect thing to create a artificial deep learning model, because we've got a picture, a date, and a name. And if I started in 3rd grade and I've got a yearbook picture from 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, all the way through, and we know what my name is, it is possible to train a model, and it would be so cool to have Norfolk Academy kids do this, because I think they really could. I mean, these tools, I think there's a lot of silent programmers that are probably in the upper school, but they could basically take all of your yearbook, train the model, so that from a workflow perspective, maybe the first round is that we use algorithms to just basically try to identify things into decades, or to identify even faces. I mean, it is really possible. Now, it's not perfect. I uploaded a picture of Chewbacca to Microsoft, and it said, I think this is a picture of a dog looking at a camera, right? So, it's still evolving. It's partly true, right? But I guess, yeah. So we know that finding the right place can be challenging, and it can also be a struggle. So I guess, I want to be quiet again and just say, like, if we need help, if we wanted to help you all identify this, meaning that it would be a collaborative effort of sharing ideas and figuring out where the pain, what does it look like to help, to make the time to really listen, right? And to really analyze, and to really sit down, maybe in person for a couple times and just say, what do we want to do? Because this call is, like an hour long or so, and it's a mixture of factual, let's talk, and right now I've spent 50% of it, or 50 minutes of the hour talking, and only 10% listening, and usually we try to do the opposite.
I think that's absolutely right, Peter. I mean, that's clearly our next step is to get as close to the full group as possible together in person and just spitball, throw some stuff at the wall and talk these things out and I think we've had a great start with this session today. Again, sort of framing a lot of the thinking that will go into this, and I'm excited to have the folks who weren't able to join us be able to watch this, and so we can all sort of go into that next meeting with the same sort of baseline of maybe not understanding, but at least exposure to the ideas.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to propose the following. What if we looked at either the week of 9/25 or there shortly after as a follow-up call to continue a discussion ahead of any time we could roll down to Norfolk? Because I think another call would help me come prepared. And I also, I would love that next call to be more of a show and tell possibly with the challenges and some of the data and some of the things, right? Because I've shown you mine, I want to see yours, right? Where we can really start identify what this potential project could look like, or even better, identify the blockers in the way.
And we would have to get communication.
Yeah, we would need to definitely would want to get a communications rep in here, Kathy or Esther, Lauren. Yeah, that timing is good with me.
It's perfect.
The end of September, that first week of October does lead up to our homecoming, so we're a little busy towards the end of that week.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm in New York for a reunion the 27, 28, 29. So the first part of either of those weeks look good to anyone. That would be great.
So 25, 26, or 2 and 3?
Yes, and actually on 3, we have a team from Cougar Tech, Richmond Collegiate, coming here to swap knowledge. So 25, 26, or 2 would probably be best.
Great.
Great. I mean, we would love to reconnect as soon as, the 25th. It just gives, take a week, consider everything that, has been heard on the call, and then reconnect and see if we can really identify a good starting point, something that's really meaningful and adds value for you.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Well, listen, I'll wrap this up and send it out to the folks who weren't able to join us today. We'll float those days and see if we can get a follow-up on the calendar here.
That sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Hey, it's an honor. I mean, it really is. Whatever I can do.
I think it's an exciting project.
Yeah, cool. And I will say that, what's kind of interesting for me, just personally, and then I'll leave it with this. I want to say that Tara, Rowan, and I, and you all can fact check this, I think that Tara and I were the first telecommuters of Norfolk Academy. We on Thursdays, I think, and I actually in my own archive, I have 2 or 3 VHS tapes of these teleconferences because Tara and I on Thursday took the philosophy of world religions from the library. We brought our lunch from the lunchroom. We went into the library, and I
remember yesterday. You're correct.
Yeah, right. So I love that, and it's those experiences that I was afforded as a student, which made me who I am today and challenged me to think about these things. So in the back of my mind, kind of one of my alumni goals is to provide support and just kind of interest and find like what does it mean to be digital and Norfolk Academy? What are these things? I mean, in 1728, no one was thinking digital. And the fact that we're thinking digital right now means in, 2128, where they're going to be thinking about something we're not today. So what are the things that really help with preservation? And, what are the things that preservation to us doesn't really mean let's put it in a bunker, let's stick it in a fireproof safe and no one sees about it. It's something that has meaning that we can surface and keep alive because its preservation's in everybody's minds, which is, I think, the most effective way to get resources from our alumni.
That is a fantastic way a fantastic closing thought here, because that's very much the spirit that I think will make this thing succeed, give people, again, a framework for thinking about how to go forward in that spirit of preservation. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Great. Well, we'll coordinate and start to send out some emails about the 25th and get it scheduled. But thank you all so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you,
Thanks for all of y'all.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.